We have to become robotic. We have to become anxious about the possibility of viewpoints that are dangerous or that we disagree with. And when we do that, we telegraph to our students that this is an unsafe conversation in which we feel basically unstable. So I would like to see us as a community rethinking this as an educational paradigm and asking not what do we need to give to our students to make sure that they know that we're right, but what kind of confidence can we give them through a preparedness to ask hard questions, even at a relatively young age, a preparedness to be able to talk seriously about why Israel has been significant to Jews throughout Jewish history and why it remains significant today, and the tools to be able to enter into those conversations rather than the foundational approach of knowledge around which you then introduce complexity.
You know, I really agree with a lot of what you're saying, Yehuda, and I think that I see this problem in the Orthodox world and the Jewish world as well. There's this fear that if we allow certain ideas to come in or to be discussed, it's going to corrupt people, it's going to harm people. In general, I think that we are afraid, and Israel is always fighting against enemies that want to destroy it, real enemies, they're really there. Thank God Israel has become strong, and Israel fights them, and we have to support them. And I think more and more I see our students going after high school to serve in Sahel, which is amazing, which is beautiful. So we have to be strong, we have to be passionate, but we should not act out of fear. And I think that it's this fear that if we allow this speaker, or if we talk about this, or we allow this idea, you know, everything's gonna collapse, is problematic. And rather, I really agree, it resonates with me very much. Like, let's not be afraid. Zionism, our love of Israel, the Jewish people, Torah is strong. Let's allow for an open conversation. But at the same time, I think we have to reinforce the passion of American Jews for Israel. I think I'm still old-fashioned. You got to get people to Israel. Birthright, I know there's a lot of issues with what's the follow-up for Birthright, but even as a rabbinical school, we started out in our program, all of our students spend time in Israel learning before they come to Hovei Torah. But we don't have a Hovei Torah Israel program. And I think going to Israel and feeling Israel as a Hovei Torah student, I think we have to do that. So we're working on doing that. So I think at the same time we have to take down the defenses and not be afraid and not show people that we're afraid, because we shouldn't be afraid. We should be grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that God has given us a strong Israel, and Israel that is a world power, thank God, in so many ways. Take down those defenses, but at the same time, be strong, be passionate, and get people to Israel, and get people to wrestle with these complex issues in Israel, but when they are in that environment. So, being less afraid, but making sure that we're getting people more passionate and more connected.
My grandson came home after his Yom HaShoah day in yeshiva, and he said to me, Grandma, did you ever hear of a guy from Japan named Sugihara? And I said, oh, you mean Sugihara? I've never heard of him. And we had a good laugh, and then, I was able to explain to him, a little bit more, related to, how he had saved many Jews from Lithuania and his bravery and so on. And I think the first thing we have to do, of course, is educate ourselves. Towards the Kriyat Shema speaks about how, and I agree that education has to start from a young age. You can't just start in college, when somebody reaches college. We have to educate ourselves about what's going on politically. We have to educate ourselves about the news. I think people should read websites like Aretz Sheva reads the OA's website. You can find out what's really happening in Israel. Learn Jewish history. Read Danny Danon's book. Read Battleground by Shmuel Katz, which breaks some of the myths that are circulating these days. Learn your history so you know what to tell your children, and teach it to your children, and not just don't just rely on the yeshivas started at home. The yeshivas have to do a better job, and more of a job, teach more Jewish history. It's very, very important that we start this at a young age. At the same time, we also have to, reach out at the colleges and hand out, we are one of those groups that that Dr. Kurtzer spoke about, that are handing out literature, and it is effective, and it's very important, because we have, what we have right now are very organized, the Muslim groups, the anti-Islam groups are extremely well organized. They are overwhelming our college students with misinformation. We have to be telling the truth. We have to get that truth to our students. I don't see, people not hearing the other side. Everybody hears the other side. You hear it in the media. You hear it in the New York Times. You hear it on the college campuses. You walk out your door and there's an apartheid wall there, where the kids have to hear the truth. I put outside a copy of something that we distributed on the college campuses this fall called "The Truth About Hamas's War Against Israel," which explains things like, goes through many of the lies that were spread about Israel in Protective Edge this summer. Discusses how the Hamas charter, how it's dedicated to wiping out Israel. I mean, things like, the UN was condemning Israel. Everybody was condemning Israel and saying that Israel was targeting schools. It's not true. They were talking about missiles that were actually misfired by Hamas that landed on schools, or missiles that landed outside a school, specifically targeted at an Islamic Jihad fighter who happened to be right there and who had been shooting at Israeli soldiers. And we went through all of that. We have to do both. We have to educate from the beginning. We have to educate people. We have to educate ourselves. We have to have it in our yeshivas. But we also have to combat these specific instances of anti-Israel propaganda, overwhelming anti-Israel propaganda with the facts. This is not a matter of being fearful that somebody might hear something about Israel. This is a matter, heaven forbid, that's not what's going on. What's going on is the kids are being overwhelmed by falsehoods and propaganda. College students, what we do at ZOA, we bring them to Israel. We have
more seconds.
Okay, we have them visit Judea and Samaria. We show them what the truth is. This is what's important to do. And education's a constant process. We also have to educate Congress, educate the media. It's very important that we do this. Thank you.
I think the different perspectives on this question is a powerful and important range, and I appreciate it. I want to take a few minutes just to hear from the audience. Try to keep your question brief to the point. If it's directed at a particular member of the panel, please indicate that, and I'll ask their panelists to keep their remarks brief as well.
So my son is in the gap year program. He's enlisting in the summer or the fall, who knows? And he's our second son who will start in the Army. He went to a school where 20% of the boys in his grade are enlisting, and he was very involved in Israel.
Enlisting in the Army?
Enlisting in the Israeli Army. Some are in already. And so it's an unusual grade, an unusual school, I think, also for that. The principal had served also, was an officer in the Army. So when you were talking about bringing in speakers to tell the other side, maybe it's an unusual group that we're discussing about, but I remember when they brought in a speaker who was a writer, I think, from the New York Times, right? And he was discussing the other side, and the boys were very upset. And I think part of why they were upset was it wasn't a debate, it was a speaker. And if we're bringing in people to talk, to say the other side, it has to be done in the right format. The educators have to be prepared to counterbalance what they're hearing. It can't just be free reign to say whatever you want. The boys were counterbalancing it, or the kids, I shouldn't say the boys because the girls were also, but the kids were counterbalancing it. But I think that the school has to be trained if they're going to do that.
That's very good.
I think that's a very good point. In fact, we have a problem right now that there are organizations like J Street where they only bring in the other side. They
Yes.
bring in the heads of BDS. They
right.
honor the heads of BDS. This is all they're bringing in. Groups like Open Hillel work together with Students for Justice in Palestine. Open Hillel exists in order to open up Hillel to bring in the people who boycott Israel. They only want to present their side. I recently went to something at a synagogue in Roslyn, New York, where they had a Muslim speaker. It was supposed to be a Muslim-Jewish dialogue. All it was the Muslim speaker bashing Israel.
But you're saying different things, because what I'm hearing is that there is a way, if it's done properly, of bringing in multiplicity of voices, even voices we disagree with terribly, if it's done, and you don't agree with that, but here I'm hearing that there is a way of doing that, and having a dialogue, in fact, strengthening the students by hearing different things, as long as it's done in the right pedagogic and educational way.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm saying, but that's
Okay.
not what's happening in reality. What's happening in reality is you have these groups that only want their side heard.
I'm gonna pause you and take an opportunity to hear two more questions, hopefully, please.
Thank you. Liz, I came across this ad for a rally in front of UJA Federation regarding inappropriate connections between Federation and the BDS movement. I really don't know a lot about it.
Is that show fire?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you mind explaining what that's about, and is there any need for us to take action to communicate with Federation? If Federation supports Jews all over the world, we all want to be able to contribute and help and support, but it seems like, if that's accurate, then they're acting at cross purposes with, Jews.
Federation does wonderful work, I totally agree with you on that. The concern is that the Federation has allowed groups which are supporting BDS, boycotts, divestment, and sanctions, to march in the Celebrate Israel parade. And a lot of people feel that is very inappropriate. These are people who are, BDS is designed to demonize and economically destroy Israel. And those groups should not be marching in the parade on a day to celebrate Israel. It also came to light that that's with ZOA's focus. ZOA has not really been focusing on the other issues. Some other people who were involved in the protest were also concerned that the president of the UJA contributes to the New Israel Fund, and the New Israel Fund it gives money to B'Tselem and to Breaking the Silence. I don't know if you know what those groups are, but these are groups that malign Israel. They claim that Israeli soldiers are committing all sorts of atrocity. They have these phony testimonies. They gave.
I don't agree. These are very important Israeli groups.
They gave the information to the Goldstone report. They've been shown to be first of all they are.
Please take about
But they
34
gave
seconds,
the
then we
information
go to other
to
panels.
the Goldstone report, which was later discredited. All their information has later been discredited. These groups spend all their time falsely maligning Israel, and it's a real problem that
Liz, I'm gonna pause you, give our other panelists a chance to.
Sure, of course.
Look, I think, I really hope not to get into this, and I really do not want to take the bait, but I think that the way you're talking about these organizations actually slander. There are organizations functioning within the state of Israel that are Zionist organizations who are playing out their patriotic duty, and there are American organizations that support efforts that take place within Israel to advocate on behalf of Israel's democracy and Israel's human rights. They are organizations that function not altogether differently than the way that progressive human rights organizations function in America. And the idea that by virtue of the fact that an American Jew supports one of those organizations should have shofars blown against outside the places, their workplace, and the claim that they are actually working against the state of Israel when they see themselves as very much loyal patriots to the state of Israel is, I think, the actual source of the problem today. I think we're having our community torn apart by perspectives on Israel that are actually closing down the possibility of a complex and diverse Jewish community standing together to support Israel. That's what the parade was meant to be and what it was meant to do. And if you want to look at just the numbers, you're talking about a very, very small group of people in the Jewish community, incredibly small group of people who are making a tremendous amount of noise that are actually dislodging the possibility over overwhelming Jewish communal consensus. I really encourage you not to believe the narratives and the slanders that are being used to talk about Jews on the left who ultimately support Israel through different organizations than are supported by Jews on the right, and to look more closely at the relationship between these organizations and the issues that they're purported to support.
Hang on. We had it back and forth, but I'm going to hold off on responding. Deborah, if you want to give the last question.
Yeah, my question is for Rainey and the last question is to Manhattan. In my understanding of your words about American Zionism is that there's only one way to be an American Zionist. If you agree with our program, then you're in, and if you're not, you're misguided at best, and you're not a Zionist. And that's the message that I'm hearing. And besides the fact that I don't believe that's true, but I also think it's a message that's doomed to more failure than success. In other words, you are risking driving away people with opinions that are different than yours about all the issues which are, I think we can all agree, are crucially important, such as Iran, etc. But if they disagree with you, they're not Zionists, is what I hear you saying. And if I'm right, then you're driving away a lot of people who have different opinions and saying to them, you're not a Zionist, so, who cares about you? And the result, I fear, will be that people will hear that message and think, yeah, we're not Zionists. And their support for Israel will ultimately wane. So I'd like to hear if you have any comments on that.
If you take a look at Jewish law, Vayikra, which speaks about bad speech and slander, it's in the very same verse that says that that you should not speak falsely, bad or not use bad speech. It says that you should also not stand idly by your brother's blood. And what this means is that there's an exception to when you can speak badly, and Israel is and it is when Israel's security is at stake, or when somebody's security is at stake. You don't stand by idly.
You're not answering my question.
No, I am answering the question about what Jewish law says about different types of speech, and I think it's very relevant. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a big tent. I think there should be a big tent. There are many diverse views. There's the Green Zionists. We're focused on ecology. There are many other, there are all sorts of people. And the definition that I gave you of Zionism is not one that comes from ZOA. It comes from a body, the Parliament of the Jewish People, that includes people from the right and left and everybody else. The security, the concern with that Zionism is the national liberation movement of the Jewish people, and the concern with Israel's security. This is something that the entire 500 whatever body representing the 525 body Parliament of the Jewish people.
So I actually, Rabbi Avi mentioned that Jerusalem is the city of romance, and we sing it under the chuppah, and I have to run to a chuppah. So I just want to get my word in that. I agree with you. Broaden the definition of Zionism, even beyond the Jewish liberation movement. I broaden it even more than that. And let's have a great conversation. Let's not be afraid. And yeah, Big Ten, definitely Big Ten. Passionate, defend Israel, fight for Israel the way we see fit. People have different political ways of doing that, but I think I agree with you. Broaden the definition. If you'll ask me what I think Zionism is the love for the land of Israel and wanting to go and get the Jews to Israel. But absolutely, let's be broad and let's be open, and let's not be afraid of letting everyone into the conversation, really when it's done in a proper, respectful way. So I apologize if I could...
We're going to wrap up. If you need to run out right the second you can, I'm going to say 2 words of closing. We're past time, and we have a lot more learning to do today. I really want to thank our panelists. It's a challenging conversation, and I think that we heard, in a certain way, 3 different approaches to what it means to be an American Zionist that I felt a resonance with aspects of each of them, to really think about dreaming, not to give up on dreaming and imagining what Israel can be, even as we engage with what she is right now, holding on to an aspiration for Aliyah, and at the same time trying to build robust community in America that can serve in dynamic relationship, and a strong advocacy for all the political advocacy work and reaching out that we need to do to ensure a safe and secure Medinas Israel, and that open question that we're struggling with about who's in and who's out, what it means to create healthy conversation, how to be able to do what we feel is right for Medinas Israel, at the same time keep as many people in the conversation as possible, and the tensions over that are playing out in real actions and real conversations and real issues down to the very Israel Day Parade, which is coming up. And my encouragement is that we read as widely as we can, be as educated as we can, open up the conversations, to try to continue to talk to the people with whom we know we disagree, find the room to bring their viewpoint in to inform our own. And I hope that each of us will first and foremost allow ourselves to be challenged by the points of view that we felt most challenged by today, and to think about how each would strengthen our own commitment to Israel. So I thank our panelists for engaging in a difficult
Thank you.
conversation.